Our next guest, the former governor of the great state of Maryland and a former mayor of Baltimore, Maryland, and, of course, a candidate in the Democratic Party for the Democratic nomination to be president of the United States. It's great to have our good friend, Governor Martin O'Malley, back on the program with us. Governor, welcome back.
Jeff, thanks for having me. Good to be with you. We're 13 days out from the Iowa caucuses and then New Hampshire to follow, so I am looking forward to finally making our case to voters and letting the people decide here.
Well, you know, you're in two states, and to lead it off, that have small cities. Des Moines is a couple 100,000. You know, we want to talk on this show and we want to talk with you about urban policy agendas. But, of course, these first two states don't exactly, you know, give us the million plus people that live in some of the major cities around the country. But there are issues, whether it's rail or whether we're talking about economic development, that is really key. And you've talked about your urban policy and a number of issues. You've talked about your 21st Century Workers' Bill of Rights. I want to get into the urban policy to start the conversation. Where do you think we can go to improve getting people from, you know, home to work and back? You know, how we reduce the carbon footprint at the same time. I heard you talk about it during the debate, which I thought you did a fantastic job, by the way.
Thank you.
Give me some thoughts.
It seems like we've won two of the four debates, but if only they were in prime time.
Yeah, well, we tend to. I call it the Lawrence Welk hour, as you know. We got away from the Saturday night. I think we're now on Mr. Sullivan there, and it's back in the 1960s. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. Thanks to our wonderful chair of the Democratic Party. You know, there are these issues, and you brought them up during the debate, but we don't get a lot of it from the national attention. You know, talk to me about what you would like to see, because to me, rail is an issue that I care a lot about. We talk a lot about. Our good friend Governor Dukakis talks a lot about it. And, of course, this is a way to reduce the carbon footprint. You take cars off the road and get more people onto rail. Give me an idea of what that means to you.
Yeah, all of these things go together. They're all very much connected, and they're all part of a larger movement towards a more sustainable way of life here and in our country and indeed around the world. I mean, one of the phenomena that we're seeing in our world right now is the growth of cities. That's a global phenomenon. Here in the United States, you see young people wanting to live in cities, wanting to move back to city centers and really touching off a reinvestment in cities. Even in my own home city of Baltimore, last year I think we had more young people move into Baltimore than all but three other major cities in America. But what we haven't had for America's cities in the last 40 years is a federal agenda for cities. It's almost as if the Democratic Party is afraid to talk about it, and certainly the Republican Party sees no benefit in saying anything that would benefit people who live in cities, because the urban areas typically do not support the Republican candidates for president of late. But I truly believe that our city's future, its economic future, its better days, its more secure days, and its more sustainable days are all going to be found in reinvesting and redesigning the built environment of cities. So to that end, my new agenda for American cities calls for three fundamental reinvestments. One is the doubling of our transportation investment for transit options and circulators within our cities. Some of the worst problems we still have with natural unemployment is in the heart of the very economic engines of our metro economies. There's no reason for this. And a lack of mobility is one of the biggest barriers to upward economic mobility. The second investment is in a new generation of affordable workforce housing. You see this so acutely in Boston, where the price of housing is so high that it's hard to maintain that diverse, economic strata of a society that's inclusive, where everybody, wherever they start, can still get ahead, can raise their children in a decent housing and without having to choose between rent and food. And the third aspect of this, related to the first two, is to make the investments, as we did a little bit of, but to make the sustained investments in the sort of retrofitting of buildings, the distributed energy generation, solar panels, solar gardens, the the taking of old buildings with great bones and great structure and retrofitting them so that they're energy